courtroom was completely silent. Not calm, not peaceful. The kind of silence that settles in your chest and doesn't let you breathe properly. Judge Prescott sat high above us, her expression unreadable. 30 years on the bench. 30 years of hearing stories that sounded true until they weren't. And right now, she was looking straight at me, like she had already decided who I was. "Mr. Stratton," she said, her voice steady, controlled, "based on the testimony and evidence presented." She paused, just long enough to let the moment sink in. "You may never see your son again." The words didn't hit all at once. They settled slowly, heavy, cold, final. Across the room, Cordelia lowered her head. Her shoulders trembled slightly, just enough for everyone to notice. If you didn't know better, you would think she was barely holding herself together. The perfect image of someone asking for protection. Her lawyer sat beside her, calm, composed, completely oververed in the outcome, like this was already finished, like I had already lost. And everyone else in that room, maybe I had. Because the story they had just told was convincing, carefully built, piece by piece. A controlling husband, a frightened wife, a child caught in the middle. Photos had been presented, marks on her skin, positioned in a way that told a clear story without needing many words. And my son, my 7-year-old boy, they claimed he was affected too. Every instinct in me was screaming to react, to stand up, to interrupt, to tear apart everything that had just been said. But I didn't move, didn't speak, didn't even shift in my seat. Because reacting now would have cost me everything. I forced myself to breathe slowly, carefully, because I knew something no one else in that courtroom knew, something she thought was hidden, something the judge hadn't seen yet. Judge Prescott leaned forward slightly. "Unless you can provide compelling evidence to the contrary," she continued, her tone sharpening just enough. "This court is prepared to grant full custody to Mrs. Stratton." A quiet murmur moved through the room. I didn't need to look behind me to know what people were thinking. Shock, doubt, confusion, maybe even disappointment. Cordelia slowly lifted her head, just for a moment. Our eyes met, and that's when I saw it. Not fear, not sadness. Something else. Something controlled. Certain. Like she already knew how this would end, like everything was going exactly the way she planned. My son, my life, everything, already taken. And for a moment, it almost worked. Judge Prescott turned back to me. "Mr. Stratton," she said, "this is your opportunity to respond." The room felt like it stopped breathing. This was it. The moment I was supposed to explain myself, defend, convince. Instead, I stood up slowly, calm, steady, not rushing, not reacting. Just ready. "Your Honor," I said. A brief pause, just enough to shift the air in the room. "May we play the video?" And just like that, everything was about to change. For a brief moment, no one moved. Then, "Objection!" Cordelia's lawyer stood up so quickly her chair scraped loudly across the floor. "This evidence was not properly disclosed." "It was submitted this morning, Your Honor," my attorney said calmly, cutting through the noise without raising his voice. "Emergency filing, in full compliance." The judge didn't answer right away. She just watched, carefully, weighing it. The entire room seemed to pause with her. Then, "Play the video." Just 2 words. But everything changed. I stepped forward, my hands steady even though my pulse was anything but. Connected my phone to the screen, tapped once, and pressed play. The monitors flickered to life. A timestamp appeared in the corner. 11:47 p.m., the night before the hearing. Our living room. The same place where we had built a life together, or at least what I believed was a life. At first, nothing seemed unusual. Cordelia sat on the couch, relaxed, too relaxed. No trembling hands, no visible fear, no sign of the person who had just spoken in court minutes ago. She picked up her phone and switched it to speaker. "Gideon," she said. Her voice was clear, even, controlled. "It's happening tomorrow. Everything is ready." A subtle shift moved through the courtroom. Not loud, but real. In real time, Cordelia stiffened in her seat. Her head snapped toward the screen. "No," she whispered. Then louder, "Turn that off." No one did. On the screen, she leaned back slightly, completely at ease, like someone who wasn't worried about being questioned, like someone who already knew the outcome. "What about everything we prepared?" a man's voice asked through the phone. Calm, professional. "Gideon." Cordelia smiled, not nervously, not uncertain, confidently. "It's all in place," she said. "He won't see it coming." A murmur spread across the room, soft, unsteady. I didn't turn around, didn't look at anyone. I kept my eyes on the screen, because I had already watched this more times than I could count. "Are you sure the judge will accept it?" Gideon asked. Cordelia gave a quiet laugh. "She already has," she replied. "All I have to do is show her what she expects to see." That line changed everything. Behind me I heard movement, papers shifting, a chair adjusting. Her lawyer, trying to stay composed. On the screen, Cordelia reached beside the couch, pulled something into view. A small black case. She placed it on the table in front of her, unzipped it slowly, and opened it. The room grew noticeably still. Inside were tools, carefully arranged. Brushes, sponges, small containers of color. Not everyday makeup, not casual, something more precise, more deliberate. Cordelia picked up one of the tools, turned it slightly under the light, and that's when the feeling in the room shifted again. Because whatever this was, it wasn't normal. And everyone could feel it. No one said a word. Every eye in the courtroom was fixed on the screen. Cordelia sat there, calm, focused, precise, like she had done this before. She reached into the case and took out a small container. Dark color, deep tones, purple mixed with red. She dipped a sponge into it, then slowly pressed it against her forearm. Once, twice, blending carefully, layer by layer. Right there, on camera, a mark began to form. Not accidental, not random. Created. A quiet sound broke from the gallery. Someone inhaled sharply. The kind of reaction people don't plan. It just happens. On the screen, Cordelia turned her arms slightly, examining the result under the light. Not worried, not emotional. Focused. "These will look convincing," she said, her tone calm, almost analytical. "Good lighting, the right angle, that's all it takes." The words settled heavily in the room, because this wasn't just about what she was doing, it was how easily she was doing it. Behind me, I heard a chair shift, a slow movement. Her lawyer again, no longer still, no longer confident. On the screen, Cordelia reached for a smaller brush, moved to her cheek. Light strokes, careful adjustments, adding depth, shaping details, turning something simple into something believable. "Make sure everything matches," Gideon's voice came through the phone. They might look closely. Cordelia gave a faint smile. I know exactly what they'll look for. She leaned closer to a small mirror, adjusted one edge, softened another, then sat back. Tell me that doesn't look real. There was a short pause. Then, what about the child? Gideon asked. Everything shifted again. Cordelia didn't hesitate, not even for a second. He'll say what I guide him to say. The air changed instantly, heavier, colder. He's young, she continued. He trusts me. He won't question it. A louder reaction this time, a gasp that no one tried to hide. I closed my eyes for a brief moment. Even though I had seen this before, hearing it again still hit hard. On the screen, Cordelia let out a quiet laugh. Not warm, not kind, controlled. By tomorrow, she said, adjusting the mark on her cheek, everything will be settled. She looked forward, right toward the camera, unaware. And he won't even understand what happened. The video continued, but it didn't need to, because in that moment, everything was already clear. The story presented in court, the emotion, the evidence, none of it came from truth. It came from preparation, from planning, from control. And now, everyone could see it. The video ended. The screen faded to black, and for a moment, no one moved. It wasn't just silence anymore. It was something heavier, something final. Then, the chair shifted sharply. Your Honor, Sienna's voice cut in quickly, but it wasn't the same voice from earlier. Not confident, not controlled. Tight. Careful. This recording lacks full context, she continued. We request time to review before any conclusions are— Counselor! Judge Prescott didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. The word alone stopped everything. Sienna froze mid-sentence. The judge leaned forward slightly, her attention no longer on me, now entirely on Cordelia. Mrs. Stratton, she said slowly, do you deny what was shown in this recording? The question hung in the air. Cordelia didn't answer. Her hands were tightly clasped in her lap, her breathing uneven. Her eyes moved quickly, not to the judge, but to her lawyer, searching for direction, for a response, for anything that could fix what just happened. It's not what it looks like, she said finally. Her voice cracked, but not the same way as before. This wasn't controlled emotion, this was pressure. A quiet ripple moved through the courtroom. No one was questioning anymore. They were watching, deciding. I remained still, silent, because this part was no longer about defending myself. Judge Prescott picked up her pen, paused, then set it back down. A small movement, but it carried weight. This court, she said carefully, has just observed material suggesting the possible creation of misleading evidence and coordination surrounding testimony. Each word was measured, deliberate. Sienna tried again. Your Honor, we respectfully request— Denied. Immediate. No hesitation. That was the moment everything shifted. Cordelia shook her head, faster now. No, this isn't right, she said, her voice rising. He planned this. He set this up to make it look this way. Her words came out too quickly, too sharp, too uncontrolled. And that's when it happened. The break. Because everything before, every expression, every pause, every tear had been precise, carefully presented. This wasn't. This was real, unfiltered. Judge Prescott's expression changed. Not anger, something firmer. Mrs. Stratton, she said, You were given the opportunity to present your account under oath. A pause. The material shown raises serious concerns about the reliability of that account. Cordelia leaned forward. No, you don't understand. Sit down. 2 words. Calm. Final. Cordelia stopped, slowly lowered herself back into her seat. But the shift in the room couldn't be undone. Across the gallery, people were no longer looking at her with sympathy. Now, they were looking with recognition. Judge Prescott turned slightly, her attention returning to me. "Mr. Stratton," she said, "how long have you had this recording?" "Since last night, Your Honor." "And it has been verified?" "Yes." A brief pause. That was enough. She nodded once, then addressed the courtroom again. "Given what has been presented," she said, "this court is placing all prior claims under immediate review." And just like that, everything changed. The case that started with me at risk of losing my son was no longer about me at all. Now, it was about her. No one tried to interrupt this time. No objections, no arguments. Because there was nothing left to defend. Cordelia sat completely still, her hands no longer steady, her breathing uneven, her eyes unfocused, like she was watching everything she built fall apart in real time. "This court," Judge Prescott continued, her voice slower now, more deliberate, "is no longer reviewing a standard custody matter." A brief pause. "The material presented raises serious concerns regarding the integrity of the claims made under oath." The words landed heavily. Not dramatic, not loud, but final. Sienna stood again, though more carefully this time. "Your Honor, we believe this situation requires additional time for proper review." "Counselor," the judge interrupted, still calm. "The court has just observed a recorded interaction suggesting the deliberate creation of misleading evidence and coordinated statements." Silence. "Do you wish to challenge that directly?" Sienna hesitated, just for a moment. But in a courtroom, a moment is enough. She slowly lowered her gaze and sat back down. Cordelia leaned forward suddenly. "No, this is wrong," she said, her voice tightening. "You're only seeing one part of it. He planned this. He wanted it to look like this." Her words came faster now, less controlled. "This isn't fair," she added. "You're letting him control everything." That was the breaking point. Because nothing about this was measured anymore. No pauses, no calculated emotion, just reaction. Judge Prescott's expression didn't change much, but her tone did. "Mrs. Stratton," she said, "you were given full opportunity to present your position before this court." A pause. "The material introduced raises substantial doubt regarding that position." Cordelia shook her head, faster now. No, that's not enough." One word. Clear, controlled, absolute. The courtroom went still again. The judge turned slightly, addressing both sides now. "At this time," she continued, "the court finds sufficient cause to suspend the current custody request pending further review of potential misconduct connected to this case." A ripple moved through the room, not loud but undeniable. This was no longer just a case going badly. This was something else, something bigger. I stayed where I was, still, silent. But inside, I felt it, the shift. For the first time since this began, I wasn't the one being questioned. Cordelia let out a short, strained sound, not quite a cry, not quite anger, something breaking under pressure. Her lawyer leaned in, whispering quickly now, urgent, but Cordelia wasn't listening. She was staring at me. And this time, there was nothing controlled in her expression. No confidence, no certainty, just one thing. Fear. Real fear. The kind you can't rehearse. Judge Prescott straightened slightly. This court will proceed with final determinations regarding custody based on the totality of verified information. A pause. And for the first time, I knew. Not hoped. Knew. Everything was about to turn. The courtroom felt different now. Not tense, not uncertain. Resolved. Judge Prescott adjusted the papers in front of her, then looked up. Her attention moved across the room before settling. This court, she began, her voice steady and controlled, has carefully considered the material presented. A brief pause. And based on that material, she didn't rush, didn't soften it. The claims brought forward by Mrs. Stratton are not supported by reliable evidence. A sharp intake of breath came from somewhere behind me. Cordelia shook her head immediately. No, this isn't right. But the judge continued. Additionally, the court has observed indications of deliberately misleading material and coordinated statements that raise serious concerns. Each word landed with weight. Cordelia leaned forward. You can't. This isn't what happened. Mrs. Stratton. The tone stopped her instantly. You have already been heard. Silence. Judge Prescott turned slightly, now facing me directly. Mr. Stratton. A small pause. This court awards you full legal and physical custody of your son, effective immediately. For a moment, everything went quiet again. Not just the room, inside me. After everything, after the pressure, the uncertainty, the risk of losing him, he was still mine. Cordelia let out a strained cry. No, he's my son. Two officers stepped forward immediately. You can't do this. You don't understand. But her voice didn't carry the same weight anymore. No control, no certainty, just resistance. Judge Prescott didn't look at her. This matter is being referred for further legal review, she said calmly. Appropriate authorities will determine the next steps. That was it. The moment everything ended. Cordelia pulled back slightly as the officers guided her. This isn't over, she said, her voice breaking. You're making a mistake. But no one responded. No one stepped in. Because everything that needed to be seen had already been seen. They escorted her toward the exit. No one followed. No one defended her. The doors closed behind her, and just like that, she was gone. The courtroom slowly came back to life. Quiet movement, low voices, reality settling in again. I remained where I was for a moment longer, breathing. Not victory, not relief in the way people expect, something quieter, something deeper. Stability. Because this was never about winning. It was about one thing. My son. Later that evening, I sat beside him. He looked up at me, calm, unaware of everything that almost changed his life. Are you staying? He asked. I didn't hesitate. I'm not going anywhere. And this time, that was something no one could take away.